This Sunday is going to be a little different, and I'm so excited about it. Hang on with me for a little bit, Will. Hang on with me for a little bit. If you were here a couple of years ago, this was like right before the pandemic. There was a murder that happened, George Floyd, that really, like, if you know me, that thing impacted me like crazy. If you are watching the messages at those times, I was really distraught about that. And one of the things that I just vowed to do was that we were just going to use our platform to promote justice and to do things in a kingdom way. But I just felt like I couldn't be silent on issues. And it was the first time I ever made a Facebook post about what was going on and all of that. And, it really struck me in a way to say we got to do better with what we've been given. And I just finished preaching this series called Emotional Agility. Did you guys enjoy that? It has become the most downloaded message and podcast this year, and it's been phenomenal. But the reality is that we're living in quite an emotional time. If we look at the racial stuff, if we look at economical, if we look at the political atmosphere, you put a pandemic on top of that, and you put life, and man, it's pretty hard not to allow your emotions to rule your decisions. Just this past weekend, the Supreme Court, whichever way you decide to fall on that side of it, whether the gun laws or the Roe versus, it's crazy right now. It's pretty crazy, and the emotions are high. And I think we just have a commitment, Arshel and I as leaders, is to say, no, we're not going to make emotional decisions, but we're going to have wisdom and discernment, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we're not being emotionally led. I was reading that today's going to be very different, by the way, so let me just give you a heads up right now. It's going to be different, but I think it's going to be needed, and it's going to be useful. But I was reading a verse in Isaiah chapter number 1 that challenged me. This was a couple of weeks ago. It's challenged me greatly, and I'll be very honest, I'm still challenged by it. To give you some context, Isaiah starts off with the frustration of God. I'm not there yet. He starts off with the frustration of God. God is really upset at the nation of Israel, and Israel, it lies desolate and it lies in ruins, and he's so frustrated. In fact, Diane, here's what he says. He says, an ox knows its master. An ox knows its owner, and the donkey knows its master, but my people don't know me. And I said, wow. And he talks about how they've fallen away so much that they don't even know who I am anymore. And as I'm reading this, I'm like, man, this sounds like the country I live in. But it gets kind of, I want to encourage you to read Isaiah 1 because it's kind of like, it's a little disheartening, to be honest with you, because he says, I'm sick of your vain offerings. I'm like, whoa, like this is God speaking. Like, I'm sick of your vain offerings. He said, don't even offer them to anymore. And then he says this, Ms. Lorraine, this is the part that really, that I'm challenged by. And he says, and when you pray, I won't even listen. This is a tough God to hear about. Like, Israel turned their back that much that God says, like, I'm so frustrated. Keep your money. Well, at that time it wasn't money, but it was sacrifice. But this was today's. He would say, keep your money and keep your prayers. And something about that should wake us up and be like, what have we done? Or what is the posture of our lives that our Creator wants nothing to do with the created? Think about that. But we know God. He's a God of mercy. He's a God of justice. He's a God of repentance. And so he begins to tell us, hey, here's how you can get my attention again. Here's how you can get me back. I love the fact that God's never just fully done. He lets us know how he feels, but says, hey, here's what you can do. Here's how I feel. I feel really upset. I'm really frustrated. I think Isaiah 1, in some way, shape, or form, actually gives us the emotions of God, how he feels and how frustrated he is. And then you get to verse 16 of Isaiah chapter 1. This one, it begins to turn. Isaiah 1:16 says, wash yourselves and make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your deeds from before my eyes. Cease to do evil. In other words, he says, stop being bad. Would you just stop being bad? Would you just cease it? Like, let's just wash ourselves. Remember a couple weeks ago, I said, when you get clean, why would you go back and play with the pigs? So he says, can we just clean it up? But verse 17 is where it starts to get really interesting for me. And this is what I've been kind of just processing. Look at verse 17. I love the way it starts. It says, learn to do good. Okay, you got your Bibles, right? Let's underline learn. Circle it. Learn to do what? Good. As to say good is not an inherent decision. As to say good is not natural. As to say your proclivity, you're prone to lean away from good. And so here's what I need you to do. I need you to learn how to do good. I need you to learn how to make good decisions. I need you to learn how to keep me first. I need you to learn how to wash yourself before me. I need you to learn how to make me important and valuable in your life. Would you just learn this? Learn to do good. Will we be people that would just be committed to learning how to do good? Because here's what I discovered. What's good today isn't always good tomorrow. But if I'll stay in the place of just learning how to do good. I told you guys I just got off social media. And I've never been so free. I was telling Arshelle on the way up here, like, yo, I am hearing stuff I haven't heard in so long, and I'm not influenced by, like, I'm learning how to do good. This good isn't a behavioral trait. I need you to understand that. It can be, but this good is like, what is the good thing for you to do in this season? And I wonder what good you're missing in this season. So it says, learn how to do good. But put it back up there. Watch this. And here's where I start saying, okay, God, what are you trying to get me to do in here? He says, learn to do good, semicolon. The semicolon is there because it is explaining to us the good that's being required for now. And the first thing he says is this. You want to learn to do good, seek justice and correct oppression. Bring justice to the fatherless and plead the widow's cause. So I'm reading this verse and I'm saying to myself, I don't know how to do that. I have no idea how to do that. But there are people who I believe God puts in the earth to do that, to seek justice, to correct oppression, to bring justice to the fatherless. I believe there's there. And so I was having this conversation in someone's home a couple of weeks ago with a woman who just literally blew my mind. I mean, it blew my mind. And I don't know if I'm ever, like, I said, I'll never do stuff like this. But I was so blown away by this conversation. I said, I want to have this conversation publicly with someone who's committed to doing good, someone who's committed to seeking justice, someone who's committed, period, like committed. I wasn't trying to go on, she's committed. And so, would you guys help me welcome someone we're going to have a conversation with? Just a conversation. Miss Monise Brown. Come on. All right.
Good morning.
So Miss Monise is here with us for
I'm not
a
used
few
to the
moments.
mic.
You're
Does
not
it
used to
sound
the
okay?
mic. You got it. You're
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
I'm excited. So I had a conversation with you a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
That was just absolutely incredible. And I told myself, I said, I don't even know if I'm going to do this again. But I wanted to do this with you because you and my wife, like together, we were just very impressed by you as a person. And I'm like, I don't know if I really want to go there. And I sent you a text on Friday. I said, can I talk about God? And Miss Monise hits me back and she says, I can't do anything without Christ. She said, I can't do anything at all without Christ. And it was this sense of peace that hit me like never before, because it was just this very real, you ooze that you are a believer of God in Christ himself. And I can't wait to have this conversation. So we're just going to hang and talk, and we'll let them hear. So just tell us just a little bit about yourselves for people who don't know.
So I'm originally from, I always say this, from New Jersey, New York. I was born in New York to parent New York. See, I told you. People love that you're born in New York, and a lot of people move down to Maryland. I am a first-generation American, which has a big influence over me and how I view things.
Yeah.
And I think that that gives me a lens to get through. By the way, I love the scripture that you picked.
Wow.
Because the word justice is my favorite word.
Come on.
And
So
it's
tell
been,
us what it means to you then.
justice to me means being Christ-like. It's fair, it's even-handed, it's slow to temper, it's patient, it's not jumping to conclusions,
Yeah.
it's not what I call the snap decisions.
Yeah.
It's giving it time. And, you know, going back to being a first-generation American, you know, I had 4 grandparents, all of them were born in Jamaica, so there's a lot of Jamaican sayings that people, that we use, you know,
Yeah.
within our culture.
Yeah.
And when you're being raised and you're in a moment or you're upset about something, it's like the oldest, wisest person can just pick up on it, right?
Yeah.
And that takes years, right? And I call that, like, you know, they have discernment. You have spiritual discernment, but grandmothers, I find, have discernment. And my grandmother would say to me, time takes care of everything. Because I was always like a pusher. I want it now, I want it now. And she was just like, you can't have it all now. You're not ready for it now.
Wow.
So that would kind of, I'd be like, come on, Grandma. But when Grandma says it, it is, right? As soon as Grandma says it, that's what it is. Don't try to fight it. That's what Grandma says.
Yeah.
So that helped me work on my patience. And to me, justice requires patience. And, you know, when you...
Justice requires patience.
It is a requirement of patience. You must exercise patience for justice to be in the room, to exist, to get to the right result.
Wow.
Right? So when you were talking about George Floyd and social media and upsetness, right? In my position, there's a lot of influences. And just finding the time to quiet your mind, to not outrage and do things that aren't promoting justice.
Wow.
Sometimes it can set justice back, our immediate responses.
Wait a minute. Sometimes our immediate response
Can set justice back. Yeah. It can set justice back.
Oh,
It
that's
can
a
set
sermon
justice
coming
back.
for sure.
Because what happens is when people make up their minds before all the facts are out there, when people, you know, respond in a violent way, it can disrupt the real story.
Yeah.
because everyone's now just being managed.
Yeah.
Justice isn't being sought. People are being managed. You can't.
Whoa, 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 whoa. No, did you hear that? Justice isn't being sought.
It's not.
People are being managed.
People are being managed. And it distracts from the goal. It distracts from the goal. And I'm sure there's a lot of people here who, fall into two categories. Like there's the early risers, right?
Yeah.
And there's the nighttime people.
Yeah.
Where you either stay up way too late or you wake up so early in the morning. And it's because you're just trying to find time where it's quiet. Right? And especially people with, young children.
Yeah.
Praise the
Amen.
Lord. We love the children.
I'm
I was
4:30
telling
to
the
11 p.m.
Right, and I was telling the pastor even when I came in here today. I said, everybody here is like so committed. You could feel the, the love of Christ, and you could feel the energy. And I said, you have a lot of youth in your church.
Yeah.
I said, it's hard to grow a church without the energy of youth.
Absolutely.
But with the youth comes a lot of excitement, and there's a hustle and bustle, and we're always on Instagram, and even with what I'm doing now, I have to have a Facebook page and Instagram. I'm like, oh, this is too much. This is too much.
Yeah.
But it's a lot to manage, so your mind's always racing.
Yeah.
Which can cause confusion, right? So that carving out of the time, either in the morning or the night, it's to center yourself so that you can calm down, promote peace, get your thoughts together, and not make a decision too quickly.
Yeah.
Because you could be wrong.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't advance the goal.
Absolutely. I want to go back for a second, though, because that justice requires patience. And if you move too quick, you can set justice back.
Yes.
That's a powerful statement. So, because even now, I think we are in a time where there's so much happening just in our world.
Absolutely.
And in our nation that many of us want stuff swiftly and quickly. And we want things to change swiftly and quickly. And so, how do you balance? How do you find that patience in the midst of not trying to be managed?
You look locally.
Did you hear that? You look
locally because you have the most impact locally.
Wow.
Because, we talked about when we were enjoying our wonderful meal. Thank you.
Yeah.
We talked about building relationship building, right? And one of my good friends, she always says, relationships matter. Relationships matter. That's like her motto, relationships matter. And when you look locally, you're able to build the relationships. You're able to come together. You're able to coordinate, which ultimately can affect change.
Yeah.
If that's what your goal is.
Yeah.
So if that's what people's goal is, they have to look locally. There's this type of ant that they kind of climb on top of each other, and no matter what they're carrying, they can carry like 100 times their body weight because of the way they work together.
Yeah.
That's community, right? So when you're trying to do these sorts of changes, if that's the goal, you partner in your community.
Got it.
You look to your local leaders.
Yeah.
And then your local leaders, the goal is to get your local leaders to do what you would like them to do, or at least believe that you have been heard.
Yeah.
So that when they're making decisions or moving statewide or ultimately nationwide, that your message has had an impact. So, because every voice isn't going to always get in the room, right? We'll talk about tables, and I want to bring my message to the table. And, even with these cases that just happened on Friday, a lot of people's immediate response is to go down to D.C. And what's the goal, right? What's their goal? I don't think anybody was there to hear them that day. If they wanted to meet with the justices, they weren't going to be there that day. So then what was the goal? And then, people are upset. There's a lot, the police are working day and night because people are out really late. Then, you end up hearing about people getting shot and all these other things are happening. And then what was the goal? Were people upset about it? Were they celebrating it? Whatever your view is on it, did anybody's goal get advanced? So people have to think, if the decision's been made and now things are going to be decided by the states or whatever the decision is, now look local and figure out what your goal is and then move that direction,
Wow.
And everybody will have their own opinions. And my opinion, I keep it to myself.
Yeah.
Because in my position, I am a neutral.
Yeah.
So I have to remain neutral.
Yeah.
But if people are looking for leadership guidance, that I can give. And it's to be vested in your local community with your messages.
Wow. So as the first generation American, what does fair opportunity and equality look like to you?
Fair opportunity and equality. So, equality, it's one of those words.
It is.
So equality, when I think about equality, I think of everybody getting the same thing. But that may not bring my goal, which is equity, right? Because everybody doesn't need the same things. People need different things. So I saw this great little cartoon meme, and there was this fence. So one person's 6'7". One person's like 5'2", like me. I'm short. I'm 5'2".
Yeah.
And then one person's a baby. If we all want to see over the fence, do we all need a stool? Probably not. I need a stool. The baby needs me to hold the baby so I can, because the baby can't stand up by the baby by themselves, right?
Yeah.
So one can see, good. You don't need anything right now. I need a stool. The baby needs me to hold the baby.
Wow.
So everybody in that moment, to get to the goal, needed something different.
God, dog.
So when I see equality versus equity, and I do a lot of work with diversity, inclusion, equity, the judiciary does a great job doing trainings on implicit bias, because implicit bias is what makes people make those snap judgments, right? And that could disrupt justice.
Okay, so let's talk about implicit bias. So this church knows I love preaching to the whole man. That implicit bias is a real...
It is.
Yeah.
And anybody who says they have none does not know themselves. They just haven't taken the time to say, because it feels bad. And seeking justice sometimes will feel bad because you have to come to the table with your baggage and your luggage and your things and things people said to you growing up and the way you've been conditioned with your calluses and your bruises.
Yeah.
Like, we're all loaded, right?
Yeah.
We are all loaded.
Come on.
And the more that you have seen, the more that you have heard, you just come loaded.
Yeah.
And like, there'll be times, and it's happened a few times, where I'll hear like a case and I'll have a headache. I'm not a person who generally gets headaches. So I have to think, like, what did I hear or observe that has created this physical stress in my life?
Oh, my gosh.
You know? Now, I could take a Tylenol or ibuprofen, whatever, lay down and rest, and sometimes that is what I need. But I have to figure out, like, what was that trigger in me? What is it that makes you get the hairs that go up on your neck, right? Sometimes it's a bias. Sometimes it's based on social media.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's based on watching the news. Sometimes it's based on your own lived experience, and whatever it is, you know, with one of our trainers, and I kind of appreciated him so that he could teach us that having implicit bias isn't always bad, because biases sometimes help us quickly categorize things so we can move about life.
Absolutely.
So, for example, I love your statement about the chair isn't a throne because it's how it's constructed, but who sits in it.
Yeah.
So a chair, categorizing it. I don't need to say, I see something with a back and it's a leather seat with legs. I believe that is a chair and I can sit in it. If I had to think that through every time I saw a chair, how long would it take me to sit?
Yeah.
So those categorizations, right? are like biases. It happens that quickly.
Wow.
That quickly.
Wow.
Except if you do that in certain instances, that's when justice can be disrupted.
For sure.
This person, this is just another blah, blah, blah. This is just another run of the mill. I've seen this before. There's no differences. And when you do that with humans, it's like, I mean, like, how can you do that?
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah.
child of God.
Yeah.
So everybody God created all of us.
Come on.
Now, we don't all act the way we're supposed to act every day, but justice to me means giving it a chance, right? In terms of not letting people be heard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You may not like the result.
Yeah.
Sometimes you won't.
Yeah.
But I feel like justice doesn't occur unless you have had someone exercise patience with you, listening with you,
Wow.
and giving you time,
Wow.
you know?
Wow.
And I I'm out a lot, I do a lot of community work, and
I had someone text
Yeah.
me today. They said, not me, this was this week. She texted me and she said, "Guess who was just at my house?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Who?" And she says, "Judge Brown just knocked on my door."
yeah.
And she's like, she's really out here.
And it's funny because when I'm knocking on doors and, I'm telling people, reminding people to vote and exercise that this is a local election, I'm reminding people say, "You're like a real judge knocking on my door." I said, if I'm asking you for something, I should, I have to come to where you are.
Absolutely.
I can't expect you, where are you just going to come to my house? I
Yeah,
can't,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And some people are happy to see, some people aren't. A lot of time, I ended up knocking on the door of a lady's case this week that I did like 4 years ago. And she brought her daughter down. She was like, I just want to show you that she's doing really, really good, and you gave me a chance.
Wow.
And, I felt, and this could go any way. You never know who's behind the door. You know how you'll see that sign that says, like, beware of dog? At least I know there's a big dog, and I know to beware. I don't know who's coming to each door that I knock on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's friendly. Most of the time it's friendly. And most times it doesn't matter whether you are going to pick me or not. I would love it, but I want you to go out and exercise the rights that you have in this country. And let your voice be heard.
Absolutely. Because
part of justice is being heard.
Absolutely.
And voting is just one way that your voice can be heard. So I love that part of it, and sometimes people are like, "Do you remember me?" I'm like, "Uh-oh, yeah, tell me what I should know you from."
I love it. I love it. So here's what I would love to hear. I believe the same way that I'm called to pastor this church and called to lead my family that's over there.
Your beautiful family and your
I
beautiful
love
baby.
them for sure. I love all of them. And that's my son that you hear.
Well, he was saying hi to me earlier. He was going, hi.
Yeah, he do all of that. My question for you is, I believe you're called to do this. I believe you're called. Can you explain to us, like, what's that calling for you in the seat that you sit in?
Sure. See, it's making me think of my grandmother. So I always wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah.
West Indians are like, you can be an engineer, you could be a doctor, you could be a nurse, you could be a teacher, you could be a lawyer, like pick one.
Yeah.
Because when coming to America, it was like, we know that you will have a job, right?
Yeah.
So when my sister was like, I'm majoring in marketing, they were like, well, we don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Is that like supermarket? Like, what are you doing? Ultimately, she ended up becoming a nurse. But she tried to do something different. I'm an attorney by trade. My older sister's an educator, and my sister's a nurse. So we fell right into the West Indian parent bucket. But we tried to explore. For me, it is making sure that everybody leaves my courtroom feeling respected.
Everybody.
I could say everybody. They may not get what they want. But what I want them to feel is it's not because I judge them based on something other than the merits. So justice to me is about the merits. And when you said do good, semicolon. Now, here's how you do good. To me, doing good is the merits. What are you doing?
Yeah.
How are you acting?
Yeah.
How do you treat people when no one's watching?
Yeah.
What do you do at home,
Yeah.
behind closed doors?
Yeah.
How do you speak to me?
Yeah.
How do you speak to others? How do you treat yourselves? And like today, I always like, let's be honest. There are times when you come to church, you're like, I'm coming to church, I know it's the right thing to do. But sometimes you're tired, you'd rather kind of be in your bed, relaxing and doing whatever.
Yeah, some of them like.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Listen, log in, log on, do whatever you have to do. We learned a lot from COVID-19.
We sure
But
did.
I like to have one message from any sermon or homily that I hear. One message. So my message today that I'm taking with me, it's two actually.
Yeah.
Open your mouth.
Come on.
Open your mouth.
Come on.
I mean, there are some people that God never developed their voice.
Wow.
Right? And that's still God's creature, so they're going to have to explain in a different way.
Yeah.
Right? Open your mouth. I do a lot of guardianship cases, and there's a lot of people who are autistic nonverbal. And, when I read about the reports or what, how to measure they're doing, improving or advancing, they'll communicate in a different way.
Yeah.
Maybe identifying pictures of people that they know,
Yeah.
or pointing.
Yeah.
But it's a way of communicating. And
Yeah.
if you've been given a voice, open your mouth and declare it.
Yeah.
And the negativity, we all do it to ourselves, but, I'll tell you during COVID, you had to really, because you weren't with other people pumping you up. You
Yeah.
had to be like, my daughter every morning, I'm like, girl, you look good. You're so great. You are so special. You are my favorite person in the world. And I go tell my son the exact same. You are my favorite person in the world. There is nobody better than you.
Yeah.
You give them those words because, words do matter.
Yeah.
Doing good
Yeah.
makes a difference.
Yeah.
Being fair, treating people with respect,
Yeah.
giving people the time, giving people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Trying to, in our day-to-day interactions with people that assuming the best instead of assuming the worst.
Come on. Come on.
I'm divorced, and it's my ex-husband who actually said that to me. It's one of the most important things that I remember. He said, when you're arguing or whatever, he'd be like, always assume I meant the best, even
Yeah.
if it doesn't come out that way.
Yeah.
And
Come on.
and that's about finding up space to give grace.
It's so funny. One of our Shell's things that we say, and I'm gonna get you out of here, but one of the things that our Shell and I say to each other is that I'm your defense attorney. I'm not your prosecutor. And so, and what that means and what that translates is like, if I come home and our Shell is feeling some type of way for whatever reason, I don't go to like, why are you feeling this way? You're so mean. You're so da 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 da. Instead, it's like the defense attorney says, how was your day?
Right. Unload.
Let me find a reason that will help contribute to why you feel this. Let me figure that out. And so I love the fact that that's where you are, and that's who you are. And I think that, I'll be honest, guys, y'all know me. I don't do fake, I don't do phony, I just don't do it. What I loved about meeting you is that you are what everyone has said you are. Listen. In terms of respecter, gonna hear you out, will do right, will do good, will be like all of those, like everyone, you know how people, like they can pump some people up to make you feel like they're a good person, and then you get around them, you like, that must have been their best friend. Like, no, you really are who you say you are, and that means a lot. And so I know that you are the current sitting judge.
I am.
I know that, I believe, see, I really feel good doing this because I don't live in this county no more. I don't know if y'all know that, so I got some freedom a little bit. I know that this is election season.
It is.
You got my vote.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
I can't say, listen, I can't tell you who to vote for. That is against the law. I cannot tell you who to vote for, and I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. What I'm going to tell you is put people in seats that want to do good. And I'm not.
And open your mouth and exercise your
And
rights.
open up your mouth and exercise your right. And so I believe it's election season. I brought a sitting judge. You hear what I just said? I brought a sitting judge into the church, and I like the seat. And so I know you've got another engagement
I
to get
do,
to.
yeah.
But I really appreciate it. Can we just thank Miss
Thank you.
Monise for
Thank
taking
you,
the time
guys.
to come?
Thank you.
Come on, yeah,
thank
let's
you.
we can do better than that, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so we're grateful.
I got my flowers here.
We're so grateful. I appreciate you, Q. Can you show Miss Monise her car and all that stuff?
Thank you.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you. Nah, you're good to go. Nah, you're good to go. Okay, go ahead and say hi. Did you guys enjoy her? Awesome, awesome, awesome.